9 o'clock. This is a regular meeting of Mills County Commissioners Court this 9th day of May. If you would join me, stand for the pledge and prayer. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Commissioner Williams, would you lead us in prayer?
Dear Heavenly Father, bless this day that you have granted us. Father, be with us as we do the business of Mills County. Father, guide and direct us in all that we do. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. And you forgot rain.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay.
He gave it up.
Yeah. Okay. Before we get started, let me remind everybody to please turn off or mute your phone or other wireless devices. We have present in the courtroom all four commissioners, the county judge, plus the county clerk, no, the deputy county clerk, the county treasurer, and the county attorney. We have a quorum. The meeting's legally convened. First, see, so item 2 on the agenda is minutes of our prior meeting, April 25th. Has the court had the opportunity to review the minutes, and are there any comments or corrections?
The only thing I have on 7, I've been something y'all did, the estimated cost, 10 horses between 10 and 5,000.
Yes.
Uh,
I don't remember that number. What was?
We had said about 1,000 for installation, and then they purchased the 10 horn.
Okay. Does any other members of the court recall this discussion or numbers?
What about the number?
It's on number 7 on page 2, and we're talking about the estimated cost of tin horn installations. I agree with Commissioner Parton. My recollection was 1,000 to 2,000.
Yeah. Just change that.
I don't know if it matters, but
Yeah, we might. Yeah. Commissioner Wright, do you have any recollection? Commissioner Garrett?
What now?
The estimated cost of tin horn installations we talked about last week.
600 on the cheap side.
yeah,
Well,
but the minutes
And
say
then
2
we,
and
and then we
5,000.
discussed 1,000. That's all I remember.
Okay,
So what do we do? You want to, we could,
I'd say estimated cost between 800 and 1,000 or 1,200.
So the correction should be made to $1,000 to $5,000.
okay, yeah, I think the high number was one issue you cited on a citizen that had a 40-foot horn going in. And so it doubled the amount of labor, work, and materials.
1,000 to 2,000.
Yeah, okay. So is that a motion to approve the minutes with the amendment of 2,000 to 5,000 to 1,000 to 2,000,
Yeah.
Commissioner Parton? Okay, that's Commissioner Parton's motion. There we have a second from Commissioner Williams. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Audience with individuals. Do we have anyone that signed up to speak? Ms. Fincher?
I don't believe so.
Thank you. Okay, so nothing on item 3. Item 4 is accounts payable. The multi-page printout that was distributed electronically Friday. Questions from commissioners?
The only thing I have on it's on page 5. Precinct throws, I'm sure it's just typo, but Hill Country Ford. One of them on y'all's truck deal says precinct 2, one says precinct 3. It should both be precinct 2.
So this, I saw that, the 2015 Super Duty 450, two different amounts. They are both precinct 2.
Yeah.
Is it the same vehicle?
Yeah, it's just a typo.
Okay,
I think it's typo.
It shows precinct 3.
okay. So
Yeah.
Ms. Campbell, can you correct that?
But there's also, if we're gonna go typos, there's also one on page 7. S&S supply, because service truck with 2 hats. I think it's 2 flats.
Okay,
Because I didn't buy any hats, so it's gotta be 2 flats.
And on page 4, precinct 1, instead of diesel, that should be hydraulic oil, and that includes not diesel for $387.44.
other comments. One thing I want to point out on the first page, the Don King payment, that was plat review for Rolling Oaks. Rolling Oaks brought in the check payable to the county. It was deposited into the county account. Based on our schedule, we've cut the check to Don King, but are holding it pending the final report. So this is the approval, and it will be held in the treasurer's office. Any other comments or corrections or questions on accounts payable?
Well, since we're doing nitpicky stuff, on page 3, it says West Texas Fire Extinguisher,
Yes,
courthouse maintenance. Toilet paper?
I saw that. I don't
Toilet
have,
paper from West Texas Fire Extinguishers? I don't think that something's wrong with it. I know we have a bill for West Texas Fire Extinguishers. I just don't know why it would be toilet paper. Anyway, other than that,
okay.
I do not have any.
Well, on that one, let's include it as approved as long as it's a proper expense for West Texas fire extinguishers. If it's really toilet paper, we'll hold it back and figure it out. Yeah. So I'd move approval of accounts payable with the corrections discussed.
So moved.
Okay, well, okay. Commissioner Williams made the motion. Commissioner Guerin seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any- Sure. Okay. We, would you like to state a reason?
Yes, I've got a big check coming from me.
Oh,
On
okay.
accounts payable for $794.48. So I'll find out the bill from that.
Okay. You think it should be more?
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
So, now I've lost my train of thought. Have we voted?
Yeah.
Okay, so I voted in favor. So we have 4 ayes and 1 abstention from Commissioner. Right. So we're into the monthly reports. The first one is the treasurer's report. This was electronic Friday. Thing to want to point out to you to read this, the right-hand column of the upper page, those are the aggregate checking account balances across all the funds. And that ends the month at 3.3 million, and I'm rounding. Then we have our invested funds is the second block, and that ended the month at 2.6 million rounded. So you put those two together and the county has cash resources of 5.9 million and some change. Sounds like a lot of money. You got to realize this is the time of year the taxes are all in. And it's probably going to run off from here through the end of the year. But it's definitely adequate to meet the budgeted expenses. And then the very last box on the page, there's the county indebtedness. And the only indebtedness we have at present is the balance on the jail bonds, and it's $5,837,975. So actually, we have a little more money in the bank than we owe. That's the treasurer's report. That will be in the file to be signed by commissioners later. The next one is the appraisal district collection report for the month. Key point here, tell you, is down at the bottom. We have collected 97.45% of the original tax roll. And as of a year ago, it was 97.21. So slightly, but not materially, collections are running slightly ahead of last year.
Judge, can I ask one question? We go back a page to the bank account cash flow analysis.
We'll talk about on the treasurer's report.
Yes, sir.
Certainly.
Page 3. It's talking about the Justice Court Technology Fund is a negative. Is that all? I didn't dig into that. Has that been a negative for a while? And then we
It's
just,
been negative for a while.
we straighten it.
The revenue has not matched what we budgeted, so that's why it's negative.
Okay. That's all I wanted to clarify.
I'm
Thank
hoping
you.
it clears up by the budget.
Sorry, Judge.
No problem. Okay, we've talked about the MCAT report.
I just got an update from Julia. She said, yes, we did buy 450 from West Texas Fire Extinguisher. I guess they do all kinds of stuff.
Okay.
So the next two reports are from the clerk's office. We have the monthly report of collections in the county clerk role, and you can see the bulk of that. First of all, it's 11,100 and change, and most of it is recording fees. All the other numbers are every time money comes in, little pieces go into various special use funds of ours or the states. And this is sorting that 11,000 of fee collections out and showing what categories it's going into. Some of it goes into that justice fund you asked about, Commissioner Williams. And the second part of the report is wherein the district clerk had, and you can see a slightly smaller number, $6,000, with the majority of that, over 3,300, being fines, but the rest of it going again into various special use funds and state fees. The next report is the tax assessor's collector report, which is really the vehicle registration collections for the month. You can see the office collected $166,000, of which the county was retained $48,520. Here's the monthly report from the sheriff's office. You see total 911 calls for service, 267. Long run average has probably been around 300 per month. You can see about 20% of those, 46 being EMS calls, a little over 200 being calls for sheriff, and then a few lesser amounts for fire, DPS, and so forth. There's a number of arrests, new jail bookings, process served. And then at the bottom, the out-of-county prisoner boarding, they billed $15,550 for the month. And then you can see it by source. You can see Coryell County, 8,000, Hamilton County, 4,800, and then McCulloch, San Saba, and Bell for smaller amounts. That continues to run ahead of where we had budgeted. The next report is the Justice of the Peace Report. So you're used to seeing it's a 4-page report. On the first page, line 5, you can see total cases on the docket. Line 10 is cases disposed. You see 51 cases in the traffic category disposed, and smaller amounts in the non-traffic, and then remaining active cases in category line 12. Skipping back to the 4th page of the report, we show the activity on magistration and inquest. See at the top of the page, the number of magistrates warnings given, 13, 8 of them misdemeanors, 5 of them felonies. Line 15, inquest, we colloquially call that death calls. That was 0 for that month. And then down at the very bottom, the fees, total fees is $16,010 with 10,913 retained by the county. Y'all interrupt me as I'm flipping through this. I'm just reading what I think are the highlights, but the judge's office report, not much here. You can see the only item of significance is 3 septic permits. So that's 3 new septic tanks with the fees associated with it, and the senior center being booked 6 times with no income. What that indicates is we typically, our policy doesn't charge for use by the churches and other nonprofits. And we had the library use it. We've had some church functions. So it's being used, but not a big fee generator. Next one is the EMS report. I just printed the narrative that I received with the actual detailed reports, which are behind it. 48 calls for the month, 36 calls in the city, 12 outside of the city limits in Mills County. Several of the calls fell outside of the average time limits, although we're on that. Total calls were within the contractual averages. And then there's some explanation of the calls that went long, both in the city and in the county. Most of the times it looks like the problems have been, there was one call underway, and the call that was delayed was met by a backup truck from either Hamilton or San Saba. Although out on 572, there was a question of distance. One other piece of information on EMS is they have put a new ambulance in service in Mills County, Ford F550 MICU unit with a 4x4. The previous truck was a 350 two-wheel drive, and in the ice storms the last couple of years, they've learned that the four-wheel drive is important, so the trucks going forward are four-wheel drive. And the last report is from our veteran service officer. It's in the usual high level of detail. On the left-hand side, you can see there are 28 hours spent during the month on 47 different veterans, and then a listing of what all was done work. So that's the monthly departmental reports.
Make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
We have a motion to approve the consent agenda from Commissioner Williams, and a second from Commissioner Guerin. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. We have approved the consent agenda. Number 4, consider an act on filing final plat of Rolling Oak subdivision. This was in here last meeting. As y'all recall, we approved the bond, the amount of the bond. Not to say I've received it, but we approved the amount for the road work. We took no action on the plat pending report from the county's designated surveyor. I talked to our Don King, our designated surveyor, Friday. He was midway through it. Thought he would complete it over the weekend. I had a relayed phone call from him as we were starting this court meeting to say that he has a few minor things that he believes he can correct. Their technical matters that he believes between the developers, surveyor himself, and Commissioner Wright, that he believes it's ready for approval. So we have his blessing. I know we have a principal, John Ed Steffen, in the audience to speak to it if we want to discuss it further. Y'all had the full plat last time. I don't know if it stayed up here or not. If we want to get the final, I mean, there won't be anything to sign until these changes are made and it's back to the court. But the final sign off will be the surveyor, the clerk, and the county judge. But it'll be they get us saying Commissioner's Court approved it. It's a little awkward here to be talking about approving something that's not in front of us and has a few technical things to work out at the same time. Given the timing on this, I don't know if we want to wait another 2 weeks. So we just throw it open. Let me start with inviting Mr. Steffen. If there's anything you would like to say to the court, are you aware of what any of these changes are?
No, Your Honor, it's the first I've heard about it.
Okay. Have you heard anything from your surveyor about his discussions of the plat with Don King?
Only that he spoke to Don King last week. There wasn't any, obviously it's the same thing. He needed to the weekend to finish his review.
Okay.
But you're saying Don has given he said that he's good with it.
He says there are some minor changes that need to get made in the final plat that he and Mr. Steffen's surveyor are in agreement on, and that he thinks he described it as ministerial or technical. We can either deal with it in a call meeting between now and our next meeting, or perhaps when we might ask the county attorney if the court could authorize, or if the court chooses to do so, authorize the judge and the clerk to accept the final plat subject to the ministerial changes.
Yeah, I think you could accept it subject to those. And I haven't talked to Mr. King personally, but sounds like it's not anything terribly drawn out. So I would think you could accept it subject to the technical correction. Soon to be made shortly. Court could sign off and approve it, be done with it.
Any further discussion from the court?
I'll make a motion that we approve the Rolling Oaks subdivision plat with the additions with the surveyors.
Subject to the technical corrections, and you're authorizing the judge to sign.
I'll second it.
Do we need to restate that for you? Do you think? Okay, so we have a motion from Commissioner Wright, a second from Commissioner Williams. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? So what did you vote one way or the other?
Yeah. I voted aye.
You voted aye. So that's unanimous. Okay, number 5, consider an act on county policy for entrances on county roads. This colloquially, we call it maybe the tin horn policy. This is something that was brought up last meeting. There's a draft policy and actually an application for access permit. This is plagiarized and adjusted from TxDOT's policy on entrances onto a state roadway, trying to make it greatly simplified and adopted to county roads. I have Commissioners Parton and Williams have worked on this, as have I, and it's here for discussion and approval if the court so chooses. I believe there is a fee embedded in it. Let me find it.
If this passes, Judge, we're going to continue to put in tin horns ourselves, the county. Or do we have to go through the procedures that we're making the individuals do that want to put in something?
No, if you're talking about the county owns, we're not building it for driveway access. It's a drainage issue in our right of way. This is for third parties crossing the county right of way, which we own or control. If we're doing it on our own account, my interpretation would be this doesn't apply to that, but I'd defer to a county attorney.
Say that again.
Mr. Hale, if we have a policy that governs individuals or property owners gaining access across the right of way to a county road, if the county is doing drainage work on its own account, it doesn't need to go through the same application process because it already owns the right of way.
I'm not sure I'm understanding what you're saying.
Okay, Commissioner Wright, this was, you raised it, maybe you can state it more eloquently.
What I'm concerned about, I know this drainage, Dale's been concerned about adding these tin horns and stuff, but what I have here, it shows culverts in this drainage. What I see. So that's what I was asking.
I thought maybe,
I might just say that in the local government code, I think it's the local government code, there are several sections in there dealing with drainage and the county's responsibility as far as controlling drainage. And I think that's where the county gets its authority to actually install culverts, drainage ditches, whatever might be necessary. So the fact that it's tied to drainage really is just to tie it to that statutory authorization overall. Now, I'm not sure I understand exactly what the question is.
Well, what I'm asking, even though the drainage and stuff, it states in here on this that there'll be no covered head walls or similar vertical ends for drainage. Is that, I don't understand that.
It says the design requirements for the safety end treatments are as follows. So that's if you are installing, I mean, if you read the paragraph above it, this says safety treatments will be used for all driveways with drainage structures constructed within the highway right of way. So that's if you got an entrance coming on county road, they're building a drainage culvert under it. It says there's not going to be a culvert head wall or similar vertical end, something hard and vertical. If somebody's forced into the bar ditch, they're going to hit it and have a wreck.
Is there like a height minimum requirement on that?
No, there is, I think
There's a slope requirement.
there's a slope requirement of 6:1 or I think it says or flatter.
that all pertains to TxDOT, I mean,
So I mean, is that saying that like you can't build a wall on either side?
You can't build a vertical wall.
vertical means up.
Yeah.
Vertical means 90 degrees from the
Right,
perpendicular.
so-
You could have a sloped wall.
Right, and you would want.
Yes.
I mean, I don't think that that's a really big problem. I mean, you don't want anybody to build a wall on entrance.
But this is
No.
also giving us, this is a permit so that landowners have to let the commissioners know that they're gonna put an entrance in or they're gonna be putting a right of way into that. I had
Do we,
three,
do we, as a county, abide by this now? When we make drainage?
well, we don't have a policy now. That's why we're trying, this is what this is for, is to put this policy in place. No, we don't. I mean, each commissioner does his own thing. This is gonna be saying there's a policy in line for this of to install, giving us, make sure that we approve all entrances. Right now, people are putting in entrances, they're not even asking. Don't you agree?
No, everybody's put an entrance in, was calling me and talking with me.
Not in my
I-
precinct.
Anybody that's put one in on their own without my knowledge.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure they'll try, some of them will try, but they have not put any kind of culvert in. I'll take that back. There
That's
has
just to
been,
say, there has been.
there has been.
Yes, sir.
So, yes, but they've met all my requirements. I've gone by, looked at them and they're,
But this is saying that they're giving you permit, they're just giving you knowledge that they're gonna put it in.
Sure.
Now, I don't know what's gonna, this doesn't say if they don't come toward us with those permits and inform us, what are we gonna do? We're gonna make them rip it out like
well,
TxDOT
I
does?
think we have that right to, Jason.
If it's in the right of way,
Yes,
it's the
sir.
county owned.
Yes, sir. I think we have that right as commissioners if we do that. But I just want to make a policy that we can't abide by because
Well, the county owns the right of way. So
sure it does.
this is for other people doing things in the county right of way.
So do you have a better idea what you
No,
want this to say?
No, I don't. I just, like I said, I've been looking it over and I kind of like to look it over and really.
We don't have to
determine
approve it
what
today.
is.
Okay.
It's not in time frame, is it, for it?
Now, this, Commissioner Parkin brought this up, I think, a meeting ago,
That's correct.
because he had some specific issues and suggested we take a uniform approach across the county. County attorney agreed that that was probably a good idea.
Sure.
So a couple of commissioners volunteered to draft something and they did, and here it is.
Sure.
And if the court wants to act on it or defer it or study it, it's fine.
I like to, that's all I'm asking is have a chance before we act on it, really look it over and talk with other commissioners about it and really determine that we need this or not. And I agree. I don't think anybody ought to have a right to go out and put a tin horn or drainage on our county right of ways unless our approval.
And I think it would be in the best interest to everybody if the approvals were uniform. We're going to have subdivisions at some point that might cross precinct lines, and it's going to be difficult to have one set of rules on one end and one on the other.
I understand.
Okay, so is there a motion?
Make a motion that we table this till next commissioner's court so that everybody has a chance to study it in their own time.
We have a motion to table for one meeting. Is there a second?
I'll say it.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I'd like to say that if anybody's got suggestions or markups, turn them into Jackie and we'll try and keep a running red line that we can then recirculate.
Sure.
Okay, all in favor of tabling, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay, no opposed. We'll see that next time. See, number 6, discussion of potential subdivision of Greeley property in Pretty. And there's a drawing in your material. This came to Commissioner Parton. I'll let him do most of the discussion. It started off as a potential acceptance of a private road as a county road. Right now, this street, and I'm going to butcher it, Slay Street
Slay Street, what,
it turns into county. It's technically is it a county road?
no.
Okay.
Slay Street ends where this property begins. The rest of it is a private lane. I'm gonna let Gerald Hale address it too, but,
So where's it, what is it in on this map, sir?
It's where
where's it
the
end, where
the red box
Oh, the red box.
right behind the pretty school. That's the street, and that corner is where the street ends. And since Pretty's unincorporated, I believe these streets are technically county roads.
that one is not.
It's not, okay.
There are, at least from the little block on y'all's map, from the little block down towards the school, there's at least 6 easements that have been granted over the years. So it's still a private lane and a pasture, but it looks like a road. There are gates down at the end. Let me say before we go too far on this thing, I've talked to Gerald Hale on it. Got a hold of little Clarence Greeley, the son, which is a real estate dealer. And he has decided that the cost is going to be prohibited for them to try to sell a lot or two. Now, supposedly the school is buying the first lot behind the school. He's trying to get them to go ahead and buy that back lot and just be done with it. First, we talked about making that a public road to see if it would ease it, but none of these lots are over 10 acres. So even making it a public road wouldn't quote stop it from being a subdivision, because they have to be 10 acres and more and on a private road. So these are like 3 to 4 acre tracts. So the only reason I wanted to leave it on here, we got it done, I guess, in time, but late, is I figure this is just kind of the first of many of these situations. With the new subdivision ordinances, I think we'll see stuff like this come up pretty often.
So make sure I got this right. They are tabling this and do not want to make a public road or anything like that. They're
No,
tabling all their concerns.
they're just, when they looked at the new subdivision ordinances, which they didn't get it in, it's a minimum of $1,000 for a final plat plus $200 per lot. So they were looking at $1,600 or a preliminary plat.
Plus a variance fee.
And plus a variance fee. So they were looking at $2,600 worth of, I guess you'd call it legal costs to do this. So they just decided not to do it. And they claim this one back up here by itself is being sold to within the nepotism law, the kin folks, so it don't have to have anything done to it. I guess my biggest concern on this little stretch of private road, whatever happened, that was gonna have to be, Gerald had a name for it. It's gonna have to be courtesy deeded to the county.
Well, there's lots of issues floating around here. For one thing, you can have a public road that's not a county road. You can't have a county road that's not a public road, but you can have a public road that's not a county road. I've been dealing with these roads in British for 40 years, and there's not a clear-cut case on a lot of them for public road or not, and in a lot of situations where the public road starts and where it ends. 2nd Street, 3rd Street, 4th Street, Schley Street is actually main part of Slade Street is laid out in a dedication that's clear. I'm not real sure where Slade Street starts and stops and this property starts, or maybe a gap. But anyway, bottom line is, I really don't know that it makes much difference, because your subdivision regulations say if any tract is divided into 2 or more tracts and it doesn't fit one of the exemptions, then it's subject to the subdivision regulations, period. And that's it. And this particular situation doesn't fit any of these exemptions, whether this is a public road or not. So I don't think that fact really matters. It comes down to the fact that this is what they're proposing anyway. Doesn't appear to me to be a subdivision under the definition, and that it doesn't fit any of the exemptions. So the next option is, well, do they go through the subdivision process that's outlined in the regulations, or does the court grant a variance? You're going to be called on time to time to grant variances. Parents want to leave their kid 5 acres back there in the back part of the place and where to build a house. That's a subdivision, and it does not fit an exemption. So are you going to require them to go through the whole process to do that? And I'm just telling you, look forward to this, because it's coming.
Look
I
forward
don't have a
to it.
real answer to this particular situation.
Well, it looks like to me on this map that Pretty's already encroaching on that property right there, right?
Basically stops at that.
I mean, that barn is sitting on the
Well,
property.
that's the reason the school is trying to buy that,
Oh,
because that's
okay.
where the bus barn sits, and
It's already.
that
on their
was
property.
$1 a year lease for as long as the school's in operation.
Gotcha.
So, the school is behind that first plot, or I assume they're waiting on surveys. In that little block up there in the center, that is a house, a residence, so.
That has already been sold prior to our.
30 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it has one of those easements.
Yes. The fire department, the water department, there's a well behind the school, the Limmers, the Cockle House, all of those people, all of those places, if you pull all the books over here in the clerk's office, they all have easements through them, but they're backing off, but I'm like Gerald, this is just, I'm not gonna say this is the first, because we've dealt with this quite a bit.
Yeah, this is a good example. I've received phone calls recently with a realtor, kind of often fast talking, to say, I want you to agree that this doesn't apply, or this is a variance. And it's like, slow down. Want to see a map, draw out what you're talking about. We can't just deal with this stuff off the cuff.
So y'all don't belay that street at all. That's not a county street.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Okay.
guess the beauty part of the new subdivision ordinance is that sounds terrible. There's enough charge involved in them. It lets you see whether people are serious enough to do it. I mean, because even if you grant them a variance, they still have to plat it, right?
Right. The variance is in general from some part of that ordinance. You're still going to have to come in and apply for approval and get a variance from certain pieces.
Right, I mean, the court could grant a variance on some particular factor in subdivision. I mean, you don't have to just say, well, we're just going to declare this exempt. You can say, well, we're not going to make you drill the water report or something because they've got pretty water.
Yeah.
You can grant a particular variance for a particular issue. And then, of course, something else I know that they're concerned about is the cost. And I don't know if we've actually decided on filing fees on these yet. Maybe, I know Brown County thinks it's the size of the subdivision is determinative on the cost of the filing fee. maybe you need a minimal type filing fee for a smaller, only 2 or 3 lot. So I don't.
Yeah, what we
Those are
had,
all issues that the court needs to address.
we-
I'm gonna say one other thing. Pretty is not an incorporated municipality, which means the county has jurisdiction over subdivisions in Pretty. Mullen and Ghostway are both incorporated, which means their extraterritorial jurisdiction exceeds the half a mile outside the city limits, which means that the county's regulations don't apply to Mullen and Ghostway and half a mile outside the city limits. So you may not have some of these same issues in Ghostway, Mullen that you have under the 3 years ago.
okay. Any other discussion?
I make a motion that we
There-
table
No
the
action on it.
Yeah,
potential subdivision.
yeah, it just was on for discussion. I don't know that
Oh,
we
okay,
need
I'm sorry.
anything.
Yeah, okay,
Oh,
I'm sorry. Yes, you're correct.
okay, let's see. Number 7, consider an participating agency agreement, capital area RAC. This was in here last time. It came in from the sheriff's department. And we tabled it because there wasn't anybody here to speak to it. Subsequently, I talked to Sheriff Hammond. His explanation was this is something we had done in the past, and they just sent it in to re-up. And really no further information. If you read it, it's proposal to pay our fair share, and then a commitment that they're going to seek grants. But in the event the grants aren't adequate, the counties would be obligated to fund the counties and the other agencies. I went to our RAC. We are in Trauma Service Area L. And you can see this thing came in from CAT-RAC, that's capital of Texas, that's the Travis County RAC, and is for a combined service area. The explanation I got from the head of the Trauma Service Area L is that when the state provided this emergency planning grant money years ago, and that would be 3 to 5 years ago, they did it in consolidated regions, and this consolidated filing was made to get that money for emergency planning. That now the RACs are seeking it individually, and so our Trauma Service Area L is going to be seeking its direct funding for this emergency hospital planning. And based on that, she suggested we not sign in with the capital of Texas, Travis County RAC, but wait and do it through Trauma Service Area L. So any,
Well, that
Ms.
answers my question. I was wondering why we were.
Yeah,
Austin's RAC or whatever.
I think, I mean, it was here because we'd done it before several years ago. That's all I could get out of it. And that there's new management at Travis, the Travis County RAC, and they just sent it out to everybody. Ms. Gerba, is there anything you know on this that I didn't touch on? So I put it on the agenda when we had to publish it before I had all this other information, but based on the other information, I'd propose we either turn it down or table it in case it wants to come back. So let me make a formal motion to table consideration of the participation agency agreement with the Capital Area Texas Regional Advisory Council.
Second.
A motion from Judge Smith, second from Commissioner Wright. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, 8, contingency collection contract from the JP's office. The contract is in your material, and I prepared a summary. Basically, if you look at the contract, it's an entity called 13 Bearcat. also called Graves Humphrey Stall, but locally, we tend to refer to this as net data. And there's two pieces of net data. One is they are the software provider for our justice courts. The multi-page report you looked at earlier was a net data report, as I understand it. And Ms. Avance is on Zoom. She can speak to this if she wishes. So there's that. That's an annual software fee, a licensing fee, and it's about, I think last year was around $4,700. Then there is collection services, and that's what this contract is, where the county entered into this back when we first automated the JP's office, and I think it was maybe 2015 or 16. And they go out and collect the fees and fines and fees that we're unable to. They bill, they collect, they send letters, they threaten legal action. They may even initiate legal action. I don't know. But then in return for all that, the money comes here, but we owe them, and that's a contingency for collecting. We don't owe them anything if they don't collect, but if they do collect, what this agreement gives them is 30% of the collections. They're down at the bottom of the summary. You can see the existing contract we have like this was approved by the court back in 2016 for 5 years. So it's coming up. It provides for annual increments of renewing for 1 year. It's cancelable 90 days after the initial term. That doesn't mean we can renew this and cancel in 90 days. If we renew it, we're in for 5 years, and after that can cancel within 90 days notice. And the fee is the same fee rate we had last time, which is 30%. And at the middle of the summary, you can see the fines and fees collected. The best I can tell from the justice court, there's an account number. I got to tell you that we tend to run county court, justice court, and district court all into the same, what I call general ledger account. So it gets a little messy trying to take it apart. But the second line is more specific with the fees we actually have paid to this collection agency. And you can see it's running, $15,000 to $20,000 a year. So that's the agreement.
So why are we redoing the agreement? I understand that it says 5 years, but it also says even in the old one and this new one, it says this will automatically renew on an annual basis.
I can't answer that. Ms. Avance, can you? You have to unmute yourself.
Judge Avance is not able to speak. I don't think she has a microphone.
Okay. Well,
The only thing that I'm seeing that's changed is maybe the name. Adding that word Bearcat in it. I mean, I've read both the old one and the new one. That's all I'm seeing.
Yeah.
But it does say that we'll renew annually.
yes.
So I didn't know why we were doing a new 5-year contract.
Sir,
Yes.
Judge Avance is on her way over here and she's gonna talk through my microphone.
Okay. Or she's welcome to come to the courtroom. We can pass this and come back to it in 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Let's let the JP speak to that. And she should be up here, but let's keep moving. Number 9, discussion of schedule. We have the election that was just held. There is a deadline to report the canvassed election results to the Secretary of State, and it's before our next scheduled Commissioners Court meeting. So the clerk has asked us to schedule a special meeting to canvass the election results. We can't do it today because the polls close Saturday and the results are not ready to be canvassed. So we've got to find a date to schedule a meeting The soonest we can do it and give notice under the Public Meetings Act would be Thursday morning at 9 o'clock. That would be this Thursday, May 12th. And just out of abundance of caution, and that was if we posted it by 9. I actually have posted a special agenda on the website publicly and in the courthouse for 9 o'clock that time. It doesn't mean we can't pull it down and change it. But so we have a placeholder marker published for Thursday at 9. If we can't get a quorum, we can make it later. We need 3. Does that work for you,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Gearing?
As far as I know now.
Okay. So we will go with what we have posted as a special meeting at 9 o'clock this Thursday. And the only item I believe that we have on the agenda, we have 2 items actually. One will be this May 7th canvassing, and the other, and we need to address it in our last meeting, or maybe the meeting before, there was question on jury donations. Our county attorney wasn't here. We talked about it. We tabled it. We have a jury call again coming up next Monday. So we'll list that again on that agenda, or it is listed on the agenda. If the county attorney Thursday has any guidance for us, he'll either be here or he'll convey it through me or something, and we'll then be in a position to act if we want to and need to. So moving on. Kim's here. Ms. Avance, would you come up here and use the microphone? Were you able to hear the discussion? Okay, so I'll let Commissioner Williams repeat his question.
So the question that I have is on the contract that they're sending us to renew. It's exactly the same as the last one, but it states on there that after 5 years, it automatically renews every year.
Right, just annually.
So then why are we renewing it this time?
They called and asked if we would sign a new one. We used to just give it to Trina and it would just be automatic. So we hadn't had another one since Kirk Folk was here. So I thought it was when Ed was on came aboard. But yeah, there's not much difference in the.
Well, I don't find any difference except for the name.
Right. It's
Well, I mean,
GHS.
but
Graves Humphrey
Are we
Stall.
locking ourselves in for 5 years is what I'm saying.
In effect, you are. Because you're going from a 1 year automatic renewal to a 5-year initial term followed by 1 year annual renewals.
That was on.
But it is the fact that there's a change in the counterparty name is probably significant to them.
To them, but not much on our end.
Yeah, I mean, the fees and everything else is the same. I
Right.
just didn't know why we were getting that change.
Is that it?
I don't. Mike, do you have any,
It's the same situation, isn't it?
it's just locking us in
1
5
year or
years.
5 years?
Yeah, I mean, that is to me is the material difference is right now we're in something we can terminate in a year. If we do this, we're stuck for 5 and then we can terminate every year.
Okay, I thought we could terminate within the 5 years if we have to.
My read on it was 90 days notice after the initial term. So if the initial term of their new agreement is 5 years, it would be after that 5 years.
Yeah, it says after the initial.
But does it continue 1 year at a time?
Yes.
Anyway?
Yes.
Automatically, yeah.
And if you need me to call them to clear that up a little bit, we can do that. And back on there if you
I
need.
think that would be appropriate. I think the court would be, I haven't heard any issues on the underlying service or the rate. It would be either if we could modify the existing contract to change the name,
Right, we just needed a.
to change the name and keep us in that 1 year automatic renewal period. That would solve the problem, or we do the new contract And we have the 90-day cancellation notice being able to be triggered annually rather than only 5 years from now. Either one would get us
Okay.
to where
Let me
we are
talk to
now.
them and then we'll come back to you all.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
Thank you, Branch.
So is there a motion to table pending hearing back next? We have a motion from Commissioner Wright to table. Second from Commissioner Parkin. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
I think the motion was Commissioner Gannon.
Okay, I'm sorry. Did you, Ms. Fincher, so the motion would be Commissioner Guerin and the second was Commissioner Parkin. I knew it was to my left. Consider an act purchase used service truck precinct 2. This is item 10 on your agenda, Commissioner Guerin.
Our old one's 20 years old. And it's starting to fall apart. And it was used when we started with it. It's well used now. And this truck came available at the Ford house and there's a trade in and I've got enough money in my budget without moving lots of anything around to purchase that truck. It was like it was an opportune time.
So your proposal, you have the money in your budget and we're asking the court for permission on the purchase.
This permission.
And the trade-in?
No trade-in.
Okay.
What are you gonna do with the old?
Used for spray truck.
I don't blame
So is there a motion?
you. I'm gonna make a motion that approve the truck for precinct 2.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Wright to approve what did we call it? A used service truck in precinct 2. Is there a second? Second from Commissioner Parkin. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, number 11, consider an act on 2 items as scrap. There's a HP printer in the treasurer's office and a inoperative trip light battery battery backup in the judge's office. Say the judge's office one is over 5 years old, it's dead, it's been unplugged and unused, and it's trash.
Make a motion, we approve scrap for both these items. In the treasurer's office and the judge's office.
My second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Done. Okay, 12 is discussion of the sale of the EMS station on 4th Street. And let me give you an overview. It's complicated and it's going to end up with a lot of work from me and the county attorney. Mills County owned the old filling station. It's at 901 4th Street. And it was used by the EMS service when the county operated it. In 2014, the court approved outsourcing the EMS service to Hamilton Healthcare. And part of that agreement provided for their use of the EMS station. Now, the actual language of it, and I'll read it to you. The current station house utilized by Mills County EMS will be made available for use by Hamilton County Hospital District for the cost of $1, with the understanding that the hospital district, I'm paraphrasing, will be responsible for all maintenance and utilities furnished to such property beginning on the effective date of the contract. Further, it is agreed that should Hamilton County Hospital District decide to construct a new facility, the existing station house shall be sold. All costs of the sale shall be paid by the hospital district, and the net proceeds would be split equally between Mills County and the hospital district. So when I came into office, I mean, the story I got, I'm sure everybody thought this way, is we gave it to them and we kept the half interest. Well, actually, what the contract says is they get the use of it for $1. If they decide to build, the hospital district, build a new EMS station, then this gets sold and we each get half. Now, that's what the agreement said. Then the next thing that happened in January of 15, Mills County executed and filed a deed to the property, transferring title to that property to the hospital district, Hamilton County Hospital District. It's on the tax rolls as now own that. We've got a recorded deed that shows we did that. Now the agreement didn't quite say that, but that's what's happened. And so then that initial outsourcing agreement ran until its primary term. It went through one renewal period. It expired at the end of 18, and then it was reviewed in 19. And at this point, there was a footnote added to the agreement about that station. It says Mills County's 50% interest in the proceeds of the sale of the station house is established in the section obligation of Mills County as item 2 of the 2015 interlocal agreement is explicitly carried forward and not modified. So the 2019 agreement specifically takes the language of the 2015 agreement and brings it forward. So we got the agreement that says one thing, we got a deed that was sent to them. The hospital district, meanwhile, has come back through its CEO and said that the transfer to the hospital district was never approved by the board of the hospital district, and therefore in their position is they don't own it. They never accepted the deed. Separately, they've vacated the property, informed us they're totally out of it, and suggesting that it be sold and through another party. It's time to sell it and split the proceeds, which I think the things we can agree on is that the property is vacant. It's no longer usable as an EMS station. And we need to, so I'd tell you it's surplus. It's something that it needs to be sold. Now, to get from point A to point B, we got to clean up the title. If the hospital district management is saying they never accepted it, I think we need to do what we can to turn that into a marketable title. The county attorney has suggested that we have a deed that recites the errors, admits to them, and says it was never intended to be transferred, or it was never accepted, and therefore never transferred. And so the title's then in Mills County, and we're in a position to sell it. I do not think the hospital district gets 50% of the proceeds, because the language on the 50% of the proceeds was tied to them building a new ambulance station. There's no.
So when I went and did some research a little bit, thinking about that, Judge, and they were originally, when we first signed it, they were looking at building, and if y'all remember, Jed, Mike, they were going to build one behind their clinic up there. That was what it was. That's on my paperwork, because that's what they discussed, the building their own clinic up there at building their own EMS station clinic.
So that never happened. And so now, setting aside who our ambulance service is, we got to have an ambulance station for them. Every service I've talked to, the requirements are dispatch and a station, and then they'll provide all the services. And so later on in the agenda, we'll talk about an ambulance station, but given that it appears that the hospital district's not going to be doing the ambulance station, my argument is that takes away any claim they might have had to a 50% interest in the proceeds. I have no idea what that station's worth, so I don't know if we're talking a material amount of money, but on principle, I don't think they qualify for their share. So on the back page, here's what I think we need to do, and I'm not sure it's the right order, but declare the old station as surplus. I think the county attorney and I need to be authorized to do whatever papers are necessary to get this to a marketable title. And then we need to be able to somebody will, I guess it'll be me, a presentation to the court on a disposition strategy on how we go about selling it once we know we can get the marketable title. And then, my proposal would be to dedicate the proceeds to the new facility to whatever the county does on its next ambulance station. So that's a long-winded explanation. Mr. Hale, would you like to embellish any of that?
Well, of course, I guess the immediate problem is the title of this building is in the Hamilton district name. So even however it got there, it needs to get out and back to the county. It sounds like everybody is in agreement with that. So I suggested that Hamilton district has some sort of resolution acknowledging the era, authorizing the president or director, or whoever is authorized by the Hamilton district to execute some sort of transfer thing back to the county. We could fix that problem. And then go forward and plan to sell it. Somebody wants.
So how do we
And
get,
a corresponding resolution.
To accept it.
Basically saying the same.
Yeah, I agree. I think it needs to be joint resolutions there.
how do we proceed with Hamilton's hospital district about getting it back in Mills County's name? Just, are you going to contact?
Yeah, I mean, Grady Hooper, the CEO over there, contacted me about this a month or more ago, saying, hey, we don't own this. And I said, I thought you did. And I found the deed and sent it to him. And then it's like, we never accepted it. It's not on our books. Our board didn't take it. You gave it to us. We didn't accept it. And to me, that ended it. But then, I think the thing to do is to resolve it while we're all in agreement before everybody's not.
That's our first step, is it not?
Yes.
And then declare surplus or whatever we want to do as a court. So,
Yeah.
I think that's the main deal.
I think that you and Gerald need to go ahead and see what y'all can do.
Okay. Yeah. This was confusing enough. I wanted to get all the facts out in public so everybody knows what we're working toward. So it's the consider an act on the construction. No, the discussion. So we have discussed it. So
You're going to try to get it back.
I'm going to try and get it back. Mr. Hale, if you and I can work together on a resolution
I don't
for,
think it's as complicated as it sounds.
Okay.
We just need Hamilton Hospital District to put it on their agenda at some point.
Yeah.
Pass a resolution if they want to do that, and then get the paperwork done.
right. But until at some point in time is the problem for me, because we can't take any movement toward selling it, managing it, doing anything with it until we know who owns it. So to me, there's a little urgency in getting them to act. Okay, that's the discussion. Everybody now knows everything on that. 13, consider an act of construction, a new EMS station. And I just want to, there's been a lot going on here, and I want to review it with the court and talk about what we next need to do. Okay, so background, the old EMS station is vacant and unused. Hamilton EMS is operating out of a rent house down a block over from the funeral home. We have, let's see. If we declare that as surplus and sell it, we'll get some money. I couldn't tell you how much. Meanwhile, the county received or has been awarded a $946,000 and change grant under the American Rescue Act. This is federal grant program, went to every city, county in the country, of which we got 473,000 last year. You see it, it's on a fund in our in our financials. The second installment, another 473,000. Miss Campbell and I expect this month. We've been told it would come in May. So that's the money that's available. It's taken a long time to get a rough handle on the cost of a new EMS station. We discussed that the best location was land the county already owned, which is behind the law enforcement center, with a lot of assistance from Guy Burns, working through one of the contractors that we were using on the hail damage repair. We came up with floor plans. And the reason we took that step first is then with a floor plan, we can get a cost estimate and figure out if it's going to fit within our grant money and start moving forward with what we do next. So there's the floor plans are in your package. What we've floor planned is has been costed out at approximately $707,000. Although I'll tell you that, and as you know, there's always estimates, there's overruns, there's change orders. We're in an environment with shortages of materials. So I would take that as a floor. It's going to be at least that. And that proposal included the county doing a number of things, including providing the land, utility tap fees, preliminary site work, not doing the slab, but having it ready for somebody to come in and do the slab. And I would represent to the court that needing an EMS station is completely independent of the question of who provides EMS services to the county. Any provider is going to need a station. The benefit of the county owning it is then we're not stuck with, if we change providers, we still have the station for the next provider. While this was going on, the 911 dispatching issue came up, and actually we tacked on to the end of this station a 600 square foot area that could be a potential site for dispatching. May or may not be needed. That added about $50,000 to the cost. As you look at the floor plan, the big thing on one end of it, there are 3 drive-through ambulance bays. We currently have 1 staffed ambulance and 1 backup ambulance. So that would tell you right now we need 2 bays. So the question is why a third one? We're building, this building will probably have a life of, 30 years or more. And so basically you look at that third bay as expansion. It's easier to do it now than come back and add it later. The other thing is when we started on this, the ARA grant money was designed as pandemic planning, relief, and recovery. And the construction of an EMS station fit the requirements, provided it had the ability to assist in pandemic treatment. So drive-through bays are great for doing drive-through testing and drive-through treatment. When we first got the COVID testing, when the military came to Mills County, they actually used volunteer fire department for that exact reason. They had the drive-through bays to do it. So the drive-through bays are part of the pandemic justification. There's also a room or two in the floor plan that will be designated for pandemic supplies. It's of any sort. And there's a small room that says something like treatment room or walk-in room. Right now, and apparently, reportedly, we've always had walk-ins to the ambulance station. People that come up with something, either they come there for transport, they need to have their blood pressure checked, their blood sugar checked, any number of minor stuff. And when the clinics close, this is where they go. So to keep those people outside of the cruise quarters, which you want to protect from contaminants, that's a separate room with an outside door. This is not a clinic. It's not a emergency medical doc in the box. It's just something that we do now. Right now, they do it in the ambulances. If somebody walks in over there. So that's the floor plan. What
Do we have room, Judge, on that lot down there for this building?
I think we do is all I can say at this point. I mean, if we don't, we've got to do something else. But here's sort of the order I'd like to proceed. I mean, obviously we can talk about all this, but there's the question of, do we keep moving forward on it on the Justice Drive site? And is that the appropriate site? And to your question, is it going to fit? I mean, the next thing we've got to do is get a drawing on the site, may have to get a surveyor to come out, put some stakes in the ground to make sure it works.
Especially the drive-through bays.
Yeah.
I know.
And then is the question is, being the floor plan generally appropriate? I mean, it doesn't matter where the interior walls are. Those are not going to change our cost much, but the overall size of it is going to be the major cost driver.
Yeah.
And we're talking what the takeoff was done on the assumption this is a bolt together steel building, much like the senior center that you see advertised from Mueller or any number of other companies. This came in with a big proposal through as a potential TIPS registration. That is a purchasing co-op that we actually did much of the courthouse hall renovation through. It's largely used by school boards. The ones you're more familiar with that we use in the county more often are Buy Board and Sourcewell. But TIPS is that same sort of organization. It complies with the State Purchasing Act. And so one question to consider is, do we go through a purchasing cooperative, or as we now have plans and specs, go out for bid? There's pros and cons on all sides of this. The one thing I'd point out that in a inflationary environment, time is not your friend. There are time deadlines on spending the ARA money, but I think we've got till December of a year from now. I'm sorry, speak
Yeah.
up.
I think it's 2026.
Yeah, I think it's 2026.
Okay. And then whether the county provided assumptions are appropriate. And then I want to ask the treasurer to take the lead on a part of this and look for specific requirements in the American Rescue Act grant that we might have to comply with in the construction. I mean, there may be grant requirements that are different from the Texas Purchasing Act requirements. Anything from requirements for architects to requirements to specific bid programs and specific notices. And then who would oversee the actual construction work? So that's where we are today. I've got, I think, all the facts together that we can have at this time. But from now on, we potentially are spending time and money, and I don't want to be doing it, spinning my wheels if the court sees a different direction it wants to take.
Well, I personally feel that we need to pursue it. I mean, we don't have a EMS station, and it might not be Hamilton, but we're gonna have to provide something. And then as long as the county owns the building, that's.
Yeah, I don't think there's any disagreement that this should be a county-owned facility. So I think one thing I'll do is get a surveyor to stake out that lot and make sure it fits, because that's a good point. The question that we need to consider, I don't know if we need to make a decision today, is this because some of it's got to come from the treasurer, but the concept of, do you use a purchasing cooperative with maybe a requirement to do as many local trades as they can, or try and assemble a bid package, which may entail getting an architect and creating working drawings and then putting it out for bid.
I think the simple way for us is a purchasing co-op. I mean, that's the way I like it.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Is the tips or my board or the.
I would almost agree, I would agree with that, I guess I would say, because you are actually going out for bid.
Yeah, but that doesn't include an architect, does it?
I don't know, I don't know
Yeah.
what
That's,
the extent of their services are.
I know when we built the senior center, we had to get an architect to,
Was that done, well, that was done partially with an LCRA grant?
yes, sir.
Was that what drove that requirement?
I do not know. I just know that we had to get an architect involved in the building,
On the requirement for the building.
to the requirements for the building.
Do the best I can.
So,
I mean,
and
It's my understanding, I've heard, if it's both together, you have to have an architect. If it's well together, you don't. And it's a cheaper price without the
I
architect.
don't know that there's any guidelines within the ARA grant fund that monitors that. I don't think they're getting that specific, especially if you have $10 million plus. That's my understanding. Now, when we get down to like local responsibilities, it's our $50,000 in that bidding process that affects us.
well, that's where the purchasing co-op is one of the exceptions in the state purchasing code for the bid responsibilities. And the way they get there is the purchasing co-ops, I believe, have bid out pieces of this. And what you're seeing in their prices is sort of a second generation bid process.
well, and the way I look at this, this doesn't include a sidewalk getting up to it, doesn't include a parking lot. It
That's
doesn't
right.
include a driveway to get up to these things. That's just the pad for the building. Is that
That's
correct?
Yes, that's the concrete slab and up.
No
So-
landscaping, no.
No
nothing like
land,
that.
yeah. So we're separately would be having to deal with that. To the extent the White Caliche road base is not adequate.
It took a while to build a pad for the law enforcement. You remember what we had to build up. I'm concerned about the elevation of this building and behind it, so.
It doesn't need to be 10-foot elevation.
I agree.
We'll dig out on one end and
I
make
agree,
it.
but I think the survey is the main thing we need to look at, like I said.
Okay.
All things to match it, they want to survey it.
Okay. Well, I'll start with talking with the surveyor then, and Ms. Campbell and I will work on the requirements of the grant. My sense from the court is that y'all are open to purchasing co-op if it qualifies.
That's the way I feel about it. I mean,
Okay.
shorten the bid process. I don't know about.
I have mixed feelings about it because I think if you do go with the bid process, it simplifies our deal. But it also, I think, gets you completely away from local contractors.
I don't know if we have local contractors bid on start with though. Dale, that's a problem we'll get into.
What about Carson?
Well, never know.
Most of them are sold 6 months, 8 months out, 10 months out. I don't know. They may be the same way here. So
I don't know, that, I mean, that's my only concern. The other concern is, and I think it's been put out there that this is not really a taxable building. It's still not completely out there to the public because I got asked twice yesterday, is this something we're gonna be able to vote on? Like, it's not being built with tax money.
Yeah, if we were issuing bonds, there would have to be a vote on it. But when we're not doing that, I mean, the vote is the commissioner's court.
But I'm
Yeah.
saying the word on the street.
Now,
Is there another facility out there in Mills County that you wouldn't have to build one that you could just move in and construct? No, I don't think so.
I mean, if the court wants to hold a public hearing, get input on this, I mean, we can do that. But I mean, everything we do is, we got big, YouTube and,
We went through the law enforcement center that way. We went to every community. and-
right, but we had to have a bond election.
That is correct. But we left it to the voters,
Mhm.
you know, and they wanted that building. This one is, I don't know. I've heard everything positive from the community that we need to build it. What I've heard from them, so.
Well, they're coming from that ARA money. I don't think there's that much.
I mean, I think this, as long as somehow or another, and it should already be that way, that this is not something the taxpayers are gonna have to pay for their taxes.
So they will have to pay for it on the upkeep. So that's what they're saying.
Well, yes and no. I mean, in our existing EMS contract, the ambulance service provider was responsible for the utilities and the maintenance on the building. And we provided the building free. So I don't know if that's standard in other ambulance contracts, but it seems reasonable.
That could be negotiated.
Yeah, that's what I
Yes.
was thinking, Mike. That's what I was-
Well,
So do you want us to?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, if you can, if I've got the guidance I was looking for, if you see a motion you would like to make, and maybe it's nothing more than, telling me to continue to move ahead and report to the court.
That would be what we need to do, just let you continue ahead with it until we see some of
Yeah.
the actual cost. We don't know the actual cost.
No,
yet.
all we have is an estimate on part of it. Yeah.
That is correct. So I just like.
Is that a motion,
do What
Mike?
you do. I don't think we need a motion. I think, he continues to do just what he's been doing in the past. We haven't had a motion on any of this, have we?
No, I didn't think until I got this $700,000 number, I
Right.
really had anything concrete to talk about.
Right.
And I had to get the floor plan to be able to get to the number. Okay, so then is there a motion to table?
I move that we appoint Judge Smith to keep doing what he can to facilitate this.
Okay, so may I paraphrase that? So it's a motion to direct the judge to continue to pursue this and report to the court.
Yes, sir.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Guerin, second from Commissioner Williams. Any further discussion?
Question. I mean,
Yeah.
Even though we're doing all this, at some point, we will have to act
Yes.
on construction of the building. I mean, we're continuing forward, but not,
That's correct.
Yes.
we're getting information.
Yes.
We're not saying we're building it.
We're not building it yet.
No.
But what you're wondering about, how they think, we're,
Now, so does that clarify your question? So we have a motion and a second to tell the judge to continue to pursue this report to the court. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Okay. Number 15, budget. We're honestly behind on this. In prior years, TAC and AgriLife have had a training.
911 dispatching, Judge.
I missed one. Okay. I don't have much on 911 dispatching except tell the court. I have nothing actionable. Ran an ad in the Gulf White paper Wednesday for dispatch personnel. Had some comments about the ad, but no interested parties at this point. Now that ran for Thursday, Friday, and a weekend. So we'll see if that continues. I may run it for another week, or that decision I'll make today. If anybody's got any thoughts, I'm open to it.
no interest whatsoever. Huh?
No calls that were interested in what we're doing and questions about how it works and what will it cost the county, but nobody said, I want to be considered as a dispatcher. I mean, that was, my goal was to try and identify the depth of our workforce.
That's what I thought it was all
Do we
about.
also, besides the paper, do we have it on our website?
Yes, we have it on the employment section of the county website. And the newspaper ad refers people there for the details of the job description. But I don't know that we have a way to track people going there and looking at it, although it invites them to call my office.
Well, I mean, the only other option would be social media. But, that can backfire on you real quick.
Right. So let's see that I've got contacted jail standards about what we would propose to do, which would leave it in its existing location in the law enforcement center, sent them a floor plan. They've assigned it to somebody, asked questions electronically, which I've responded to, and asked for a phone number to talk to people, and don't have that yet. So we have somebody at jail standards we start to work with to get the answer to our preferred solution, which is same physical location we have. So that's underway. And other than that, I have no action to propose on 911 dispatching. That was just information. So I move we table. Number 14,
Second.
motion and second to table action on 911 dispatching. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay. Budget 15. I promise we're getting near the end of this. The spring training, I don't know what happened, but it didn't occur. So we didn't get an official budget calendar. I just started working on it. And the key is we have to work backwards. That we need to have a tax rate, best I can figure it. Worst case, August 22nd, our meeting that Monday. And that ties to that if your tax is above a certain amount, you have to do it 78 days before the election date and get it on the ballot. Well, I don't anticipate our taxes will hit that. But the alternative is then if you don't hit that rate, you hit an August 30th deadline. So one or the other, that's when we have to be done. You have to approve your budget before you can approve your tax rate. You have to have a public hearing on the budget before you can vote on the budget. You have to advertise for a public hearing for a period of days before you can hold a public hearing. And it all backs up into a proposed budget has to be filed by July 31st, but that's a weekend, so I'm calling it July 29th, and sort of see how these dates collapse back on us. Joe, that's also when we expect the certified tax rolls from the appraisal district, and then to work further back. But so let's just go back to the top with all that. That's the back end of it. We already have the preliminary estimate of tax rolls. I've got a budget here in a calendar. I've got some budget guidelines we can discuss. At some point, we need to designate an official to calculate tax rates. Late last week, Jackie and I sent out notices to all the community organizations, telling them the budget process was underway and asking for their submissions. We've also done the same thing for the county departments. We're trying to schedule the meetings with the community organizations, with the treasurer and myself, latter part of May. The budgets from the county departments due back June 3rd, and then the meetings with treasurer in each department through the first half of June. through about the 17th. That's a Friday. That gives the treasurer then a week to roll it all, or the rest of June to roll it all up. Proposed by July 5th, which is a Tuesday, we'll have notice to elected officials of proposed salaries. That has a grievance deadline of the 12th, and on and on and on. Then we have to publish the elected salaries in the Eagle, and that's July 25th. It's same, and that's the way the dates come together. We have every August posted as a every Monday in August posted as a regular meeting of Commissioners Court. I don't know that there's anything to discuss. I see, as I've been through this a number of times, I see a few things that are out of order and some typos, and we'll clean it up. But I wanted everybody to see what the budget calendar looks like, because it gets busy. It's too much detail to publish it this way publicly, because I mean, there's stuff like what the Eagle submission date to get an ad in the paper. Well, I need to know that to make sure I get it there. But what matters is really the publication date, because that triggers when we can have the hearings. Let's talk about the budget guidelines. One thing that to me is the most important thing is we have a Republican county judge primary runoff. I think it's the 24th. Once we get past that, I plan to invite the winner of that runoff to participate with me in this whole process, because whoever the next judge is going to have at least 9 months of this budget. And this is the only way to get exposure to how it comes together. Because in a county our size with no auditor, the judge is the designated budget officer. So we need some continuity in the process. I mean, thought processes are different, but the overall process has to continue at some level. So I'm planning to do that. My goal is to have a no new taxes budget. I'd like to be, that means we're budgeting on the same tax revenue on the same. So if existing properties on the tax roll last year and this year, those properties will bring in the same tax revenue. Then if there are new properties on the roll, that's new property tax and new revenue to the county, and that's different. So there will be some of that, but my goal would be to have no new taxes on existing properties. Now that doesn't mean individually nobody will get a higher tax bill, because we don't budget it that way. We budget on the whole county. So on the county as a whole, on the existing properties, I plan to do a proposed budget that keeps the tax revenue the same on existing property. Elected official salaries, we'll discuss that in Commissioners Court in June with notices in early July. We are gathering data from the other counties around the area now. I don't have the answer. We know from reading the paper, looking at accounts payable and the daily operation of the county, that cost and labor costs are going up. We'll create a budget for a separate 911 dispatching department. That'll be part of the budget. And there'll be appropriate offsets from where it has been budgeted in law enforcement. What else is on here? Like we'll ask the departments to budget static headcount. The treasurer is going to do all the calculations on payroll taxes, benefits, pension, as well as longevity. We'll continue to budget longevity in a common county county cost center. That way, if an employee transfers from one department to the next, There's no argument about them getting or losing their longevity. It's still there. If somebody needs more staff, they're going to just be, we're not saying no new employees. We're saying budget flat. If you need new employees for any reason, just give us the business, just the volume justification for it. I'm proposing a uniform wage increase across the board of 75 cents an hour. And on capital expenditures, my plan is to budget 2 new patrol vehicles with trade-ins. We did none last year, and those things get a lot of mileage and they wear out. On the precincts, I think it's time to budget to trade in and replacement of 2 commissioner pickups this year and do the remaining 2 the next year. And then set aside some number, hypothetically, let's call it 200,000 for equipments. And we can talk about how and where, but we've heard all year long about problems with the rock crusher and the tractor that pull it. The courthouse security, again, budget for the fixing the improving the surveillance camera system, but that can come out if we have the fund balance to do that. The clerk's going to budget conversion of their old court records to go with the new court record conversion, the state's funding. We will look for dedicated funds to cover that. There's some technology issues. On the 911 side, there are GPS trackers that a number of 911 centers that I've talked to use, so the 911 operator can actually see on their map where the ambulance is when it's on a call, where the main fire vehicles are, where the law enforcement vehicles are. But that will require a tracker unit on the, I think, on the roof of the vehicles. So we're going to look for the cost of that and see if we can include it in the budget. And on the courthouse maintenance, we're going to continue a slow movement from key locks as they wear out to the electronic locks, and see if we can afford to paint and caulk the wooden windows on the 2 sides of the courthouse that the insurance didn't cover. These wooden painted windows were done in the renovation back around 2010 and haven't been touched since. So that's kind of my overview of budget goals. I'd be real interested in y'all's input. I know you're just getting this, so if you want to either come see me about it, call me about it, or we can talk about it now. I'm open to it.
I just feel like your estimates on employees on 75-cent raises that they had, I know my employees that had raises in 3 years, and I know that's the cost of living right now. I think we need to look at that.
What do you think the right number is?
Well, I don't know yet. Like I'm saying, that's something I usually put in my budget when I present it to you. I just think that it's hard to keep our employees now with our salaries. It's hard to find someone that's qualified out on these precincts with what we require them to do. But I just feel like we'll just need to look at more increase in their salaries and a raise than 75 cents. That's my personal thing.
Yeah, I mean,
I'll give you those numbers.
It's just a number. I am disinclined to talk about percentages. And here's the reason. The price I pay for gasoline's going up. Price you pay for gasoline. The price Jackie pays for gasoline. But if we go 1%, I get more money than you do, theoretically. You get more money than she does or your hands does. And we're still talking about this gallon of gasoline went from $2 to $5. So that's why, to me, it makes more sense on the non-elected officials to say, we'll come up with a number and everybody gets 75 cents, $1.25, 60, whatever the number is, rather than go with percents. But that I'm probably more stuck on that point than I am on what's the right number.
And I feel maybe that commissioners will talk a bit more about it. With raises, I'd like to hear their input on some of it besides what you budgeted 75 cents.
Well, my plan, first of all, I'm not, but these are guidelines to put out.
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Once we
You're
get,
good about on your guidelines, you hold to it.
yeah, I try to, but what we'll do once we get all the budgets back is in August, before we get to the approval, we'll break it down in Commissioner's Court and have a public hearing on all the precincts one time. We'll do law enforcement one time and maybe the courthouse. I think that's how we did it last time, all the courthouse departments one time, and then everything else, which was the unallocated courthouse overhead and the community organizations. So, but to first gather the information and include, let's call them the judge-elect, I'm not sure if that's a legal word for it, in the process.
As much as they want to do.
I'd like to just say, here, do it, but yeah, as much as they're agreeable to doing. Okay. I'll get you.
I really like the idea of the courthouse doing those other windows, because I just think that we spend a lot of money on this courthouse. We need to make sure that we keep it up for the future.
Commissioners requesting reports. Commissioner Wright.
Precinct 1, the railroad crossing on 316, 315, it's been completed. It took about 6 hours to complete that, and we had some guys down, toned it off and whole 9 yards, so it worked out good. We've been clearing right away on County Road 429 and 427, and we're still just spot blanking a little bit since it's a grind. That's all I have.
We've had quite a bit of trees blow over with all the wind. And we're going down some roads and anything's dead, we're going ahead and taking them out, pushing them over or whatever, waiting for Mother Nature to give us a little rainfall. And I think she's gonna fall.
Commissioner Parkin.
We've put in 710 horns that we kind of let them stack together, building up. Some for individuals, some pertaining to small subdevelopments. Did use the rock grind quite ironic. It's working fantastic. Knock on wood, but got Mike's water truck this morning. Gonna try to water down some of what we ground because Mother Nature did not notice. And our truck that we purchased, Bell housing got loose on them, so I talked to the people, probably messed the clutch completely up. Don't know where we're actually going on that thing, other than we did get an estimate. Felt like it was way on the high side because they were just figuring on replacing anything pertaining to that. And without tearing it down, you don't know. So I don't even know at this point whether the truck will stay where it's at or whether we'll move the truck. But the truck that we purchased is down.
Warranty?
No, it's used truck.
Not even 90 days.
Not even 90 days. Well, it probably surpassed that anyway. And I don't know, by talking to the people that do that, supposedly if that bell housing or flywheel housing, as they call it, has ever been disassembled, you're supposed to use Loctite, putting it back together, and apparently they didn't, because the bell housing actually backed off and it was running good. Go ahead.
When it quit, it quit. So
The engine's still running. It just don't
transmission
go
still
nowhere.
works. Just the trucks don't work.
I'll turn it over to Jason.
I know it's been a long meeting, but I've got several things here to discuss. We started work on it's been so dry that on County Road 540, which is the far end of the county going into Brown County, that road has got a lot of sand on it. And they're building new properties, a couple new properties down there, and big semi trucks are going through there making pad works and land and all that. That road went to like a mud trap, a sand trap, like in the desert. You couldn't drive through it if you didn't have four-wheel drive. So we started adding material. We called the local pit out here, and they had enough material for maybe one day, and then they ran out of material. Scott McCoy's pit is so active. Everybody's, I mean, it is, there's a line of people going in and out of it. Anyway, so we had to wait in the middle of that. We had to end up going to Porter's over in Lampasas County to get material, which added a lot extra. It ended up costing us 14 trips to get it out there, which is a 3-hour per trip deal to get it fixed. I want to give kudos to Scott. He would bring his water truck out there and water it for us because he was also going to his job down the road. So he was having to go through that road, but I think we got it up and going. Next, finally got new owners on the Swinging Bridge RV park, and already met with them, and hopefully the camera system's back online and back going since the last owner decided to sell. Have meetings tomorrow pretty much all day. Hill Country Community Action is in the process of hiring a new CEO. We have a temporary one, so that's going to be a pretty long meeting. And also have an MCAD meeting tomorrow evening. I will be gone on Friday to the state track meet. My daughter made it to the state track meet on the 4x4, so we'll be down there all day on Friday. They'll pray for me to be in Austin. I'm also at this time working on a proposal to bring to the commissioners on a road and bridge project to be done on County Road 433, which is the short road going to the Swinging Bridge. In the process of getting contact and the prep work to all the landowners, because we will be working on that road. Child Welfare Board met last week. Just to give you, we have 7 children that are under the care of Mills County. CPS representative informed the board of all the cases and the states thereof, and any of her concerns that she has. And then last, I would like to have an annual safety meeting to come up sometime this month. If you guys would look at your calendars, we will get that. I know, we had a young man in the county that got bit by a rattlesnake. We need to be looking for that. And of course, with 109 degrees this weekend, we need to be also considering weather and all that other stuff that the road hands deal with. So if y'all look at a good date on that, I'll send out an email on a couple of dates and y'all can help me pick one. And if your road hands want to come, they come. If they don't, we'll still have it that day. I believe that's it, Coach.
Do we get a break on our insurance for doing the safety meeting or attendance?
I don't know. We've in the past, Trina always had, before COVID, the TAC always sent a safety man down, and we've done, he would do 2 a year.
Are they involved in this?
Well, since I've been doing it the last couple of years because of COVID, I haven't asked them, but I could. I don't know if they're back to going full force or not. So, and I think the guy that was doing it before has retired, but there's.
The representatives have been in the office and they've asked if we want to train.
Yeah. So
make contact with them.
I'll get with you, and then we maybe look at them, see if they got a date available too.
Okay. I've covered so much. Only thing to mention is this week I've got meetings with Hill Country Transit Board, Workforce of Central Texas Board, and Council of Governments, and it'll all be by Zoom. So there being no other business, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, we retire.
We have a motion to retire. Okay.
Retired.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.